I'm here. I totally wasn't playing Stardew Valley. I don't know. I don't know what to do. How am I supposed to follow Takeover? I mean, it could be worse. At least I'm not WrestleMania. It is, however, as of 3 minutes ago. Oh God, I'm late. It is Sunday, April the 3rd, 2016, the day of WrestleMania 32.
This is not a test.
This is the Wrestling News Experience. After Dark. Good evening, everyone who happens to be joining us at this late hour. Of course, we're all up. The Hall of Fame just ended like 20 minutes ago. But we'll get to that. Of course, if you are listening live and you want to participate in the chat, I see some people already in there. Chat bubble on the player on Spreaker.com. Of course, there is also a TWNE After Dark Facebook group, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dave the Camel. This podcast is always available after the live show on iTunes, Stitcher, and on foreignermania.com, as well as Spreaker.com. It's WrestleMania weekend. It is actually, because it is after midnight Eastern, it is WrestleMania Day. I wish I could be as hyped for WrestleMania as I am still coming down from TakeOver. But we will get to all of that. We will start with the Hall of Fame that just finished. Obviously, if you had to be watching, it's a long ceremony. Lots of speeches, lots of interesting road stories. But the big news coming out of there, of course, is one we had always suspected, is that Sting has officially retired from professional wrestling. It was the last thing he said for his Hall of Fame speech. Of course, that's been rumored for a while, but it is, you can understand why Sting would deny it up until he got to officially announce that he got to go out on his own terms. He got to go out at his Hall of Fame ceremony and say he's done. So, it's an unfortunate end to a legendary career, but at least he got to go out doing a speech in front of thousands of people at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and that's not the worst thing in the world. That was the big news for tonight. So we're going to rush through that because we want to get to TakeOver. And if you're like me, then you watch TakeOver. And if you're not like me, you need to go away. I don't care if you're listening live. You need to go now and watch NXT Takeover on the WWE Network, because any pay-per-view that takes place this year will be hard-pressed to be better than TakeOver Dallas. And that's a big statement to make, because it's only just April. WrestleMania is tonight, and there's 3/4 of a year left of pay-per-views. Without a doubt, this was the best. They don't call it pay-per-view because it's NXT, but we might as well call it a pay-per-view. This is the best pay-per-view I've seen since, I want to go back to like Money in the Bank when CM Punk won the title. Because from top to bottom, this was a stellar card, and it's not just because of Nakamura Zayn. Although Nakamura Zayn was an incredible match, and I've only seen, I think I said this last week, I've only seen 2 Nakamura matches in my life, and it was the last 2 Wrestle Kingdoms. It's possible, yeah, it's possible they can top in the future. But as of right now, this is an incredible bar. And I've heard of strong style, and I've seen some strong style, but to actually experience strong style, which basically, as far as I can tell, translates to 2 guys beating the living shit out of each other. One, I'm interested to see how Nakamura style translates into WWE, where you can't just always find guys who are willing to let you beat the shit out of each other. And two, that man has so much charisma that it's a physical force. And he's in there with Sami Zayn, who's the most likable guy in the world. So there was everything in that match. I don't want to say it's the best match I've ever seen because it probably isn't. I've seen a lot of matches, but it is definitely the best match I've seen so far this year. It is definitely the best match I've seen in a long time. It sets the bar awfully high for Nakamura coming in, but it seems like he's a guy who knows he can clear it. Just everything about his act says, yeah, if you haven't seen this guy before now, you have like this is a guy you have to see. It's hard to describe because you think about it and it's like, how can this guy who's he's been in obscurity, he does speak English but not well, so he has to get it all across through his entrance and his wrestling. How do people say he's got endless loads of charisma? And I hear it. I've heard it for so long. Nakamura has all this charisma. He has inhuman charisma, and he doesn't say anything. And I thought, oh, that's incredible. But that seems impossible. And then I watched that match last night. I watched his intro last night, and it's a tangible thing with him. There's just something about that guy that you need to watch what he does. And I couldn't believe what I was watching, and I don't know if we'll get, like, I'm sure we'll get stuff that good again, but right then and there, that was just an incredible experience. And if you have not seen it, you have to. It was a once in, like, just because it was his first one, it is a once in a lifetime experience to see your first Nakamura match in NXT. It was just, it brought everything that had been promised to the table and more. Um, I don't know. And I had a little bit of his entrance music in my theme music because that was just incredible. And I saw this complaint, and I don't know why. I saw somebody complaining that the music that they chose for Nakamura, which clearly has the Japanese undertones, gave them no hope for him because they're going to just treat him like he's another Japanese guy. I'm like, well, yeah, but if you're saying that, I don't think you heard Nakamura's theme music when he was in New Japan because it fit perfectly with what he does. And yes, they did rename the Bomaye, which is not a huge shock because Bomaye translated means kill him. Uh, so I could see how we might want to make that family friendly, but it still has a references to the Ali Frazier fight because Kinshasa was the location of Rumble in the Jungle. Bomaye is what was chanted for Ali during Rumble in the Jungle. Kinshasa is not the easiest name to say, but yeah, I can understand why they would not want to have a move that was called Kill Him. Even if it is just in an African dialect. But yeah, that was just. I don't see how I guess just trying to get back to this complaint is I don't see how Shinsuke Nakamura having music that was vaguely Japanese means that WWE is going to treat him like the Orient Express from the 80s. This is not a guy who's going to, this is a guy who's going to be a success. And just because his music, like, it fit perfectly with what I saw. And maybe I'm not the best judge because I'm a white guy, but it looked perfect for the character that Shinsuke Nakamura wants to play. And it wasn't just, it wasn't the old Ultimo Dragon theme song. It was like there was string music in there. That was classical music. It was great. You talk about like Finn Balor's entrance is an experience. The Undertaker's entrance is an experience. Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance is an experience. And it was perfect. It fit everything I heard about that character, everything I saw. It was perfect, and I love that music. I've been listening to it all goddamn day. So I don't know what that complaint was. It was just, sometimes people just want to complain to complain. But we'll leave that alone for now. We'll get to the rest of the card. Because there were more matches on this show. And two of them had to follow that. I would have rewatched the match more, except I don't get control of the TV all the time. But there was the Austin Aries versus Baron Corbin match, and when a match with Austin Aries is the worst match on the card, that's a pretty good wrestling show. And it wasn't the best match on the world, because as much as Baron Corbin has improved, he's still Baron Corbin. He's not the best wrestler out there. But compared to the rest of the card, yeah, it was going to look like a bad match compared to everything else that happened on this show. We got the opening match with American Alpha and the Revival, and aside from that really messed up top rope powerbomb that should have probably killed someone, just a solid match all around. And obviously American Alpha won. But the thing that capped it off for me, and this is partially from watching the Breaking Ground stuff, where if you'd watched Breaking Ground, you know that Jason Jordan was on the verge of being fired during Breaking Ground because his tag team with Ty Dillinger was just, it was generic two guys just coming out and wrestling, and they were mostly jobbers. And Jordan was talking on Breaking Ground about how he was worried he was going to get fired because he couldn't find a character, and he'd been there for so long. And then Gable comes along, and suddenly they're the most charismatic, the best wrestlers, and they've got the crowd in the palm of their hand, and it culminated at Dallas with them winning the tag titles. And so when they got those titles in the ring, and you could see the emotion in both guys, but especially in Jordan, if you see the emotion, you can tell that those titles were a validation of his career. That was like, people, you see the guys crying about the world titles and all that, but this is a guy who was nearly out of the business 6 months ago, and now he's found his spot. And there's no shame in being a tag team guy, especially when it's one like that is so incredible. And you could tell that this said that he made the right choice, and he's where he's supposed to be. And like, there were legitimate tears coming there. It's that kind of emotion that is missing from the main product. And I don't want to get into too much about why the main product is, but that's one of those things, is that legitimate emotion, the belief that what they're doing matters to them. And right then, you could tell that it wasn't just they won the title because the crowds love them. You could tell that they felt like they earned those titles, and they were something that you want to win. And it's something like you want to have, because it's a symbol of hard work. And that's what I got out of that match. And like I said, it was an incredible match. It had great heel tactics. It had great wrestling. Just everything you could want to see out of a tag team match. And again, it had the old school tag formula of guys getting heat on their faces before the hot tags. And they did extended heat segments. And I've seen people calling it a spot fest. I'm like, that is not a spot fest. That's a tag team match. We've just gotten so out of the formula of these lengthy tag team matches with heat segments and hot tags and crowd popping moves that people don't recognize it anymore, as that was a tag team clinic being put on by both teams. And that's what kind of like that led off the show. I keep coming back to this, but that was the lead off match of the show. And on any other pay-per-view, that's probably the best match of the night. But not on this one. And then we got that. We had Austin Aries and Baron Corbin, which had no chance of following anything. And then we had Nakamura Zayn right after that, which seems early, but there's only 5 matches on the card. It's only a 2.5-hour show. And then we get Bayley and Asuka, which is so sad because it has to follow that. And I'm sitting there going, they have no chance. Well, I didn't actually say they had no chance. I said they have a chance. That's the crazy thing. They had a chance to follow that. The only problem, I think, the reason why they couldn't, is there isn't the emotional investment in that match the way there might have been in a Bayley-Sasha Banks match, like at Brooklyn or at Respect, because it was face-to-face. It was less of a personal issue between them, and instead it was more a competitive thing. So it was hard to get as emotionally involved, and part of Bayley's thing is you get emotionally involved in her matches. And even though, and it was one of those ones where you're like, she has to lose it here. So there's kind of a resigned quality to it. It was still a great match. Like, don't get me wrong, and I don't get people complaining about the loss because at least Bayley lost to somebody on her level like Asuka. Because who do you want her to lose it to? Eva Marie? She has to lose that title eventually because Bayley deserves to be on Raw. And I don't like it was a pass out thing. It wasn't. I guess people are mad because there wasn't a finisher route pinfall, which again talks about how the WWE main product has so sanitized us to different finishes. Um, it was the idea that they were so evenly matched and Bayley nearly escaped, but just couldn't. Her body gave up. She never quit. She just couldn't keep going physically, and that's a great finish. At WrestleMania 13, that made Stone Cold Steve Austin. The idea that yes, and I get that we missed the ref checking the arms 3 times. It's something that WWE has kind of stopped doing since they want to try and seem more realistic. And in real fights, the ref just checks and says, okay, they're gone, just break it up. Yeah, I do miss the 3-arm drop, and I think that would have been a good place for it. The only problem is that 3-arm drop is usually used when somebody's going to break out of the move, and of course Bayley was not. But I think the idea that, yeah, that Bayley never quit, but she lost, is stronger than if, say, there had been a pinfall or if Bayley had tapped out. Everybody looks strong coming out of this. It just, it's one of those you never quit fighting sort of things. And then, of course, we got, so, that was great. And I hope that means that Bayley shows up on Raw next week, although I think she might have been at the tapings coming up. I don't know. The taping reports from Access the next day are kind of jumbled. Hopefully, because she deserves to be up on the big show. And maybe the only thing that will get her delayed is because it seems like there's like 6 or 7 guys from NXT debuting very shortly after WrestleMania or at WrestleMania. We don't know. And that may be the only thing that keeps her down there for a bit. But there's no reason for her to stay down there anymore. You've got Asuka as the figurehead. She's got lots of challengers ahead of her. Bayley should, unless they want to do, a rematch quickly. Like, is the next takeover in 2 months? I heard of something in Tokyo. I didn't check it fully because I've been busy all day. I guess that one will be in the summer before Brooklyn or wherever SummerSlam is. June 5th. Okay, thank you. From the chat, there's an NXT takeover in Tokyo, Japan, which I would bet will be headlined by Bayley, Asuka, or a Shinsuke Nakamura match. And Shinsuke's another guy who's like, he should not stay on NXT, but if they're going to go in Tokyo, Japan, I can see why they might keep him around for that long. Okay, and then we got the main event. And you can argue whatever you want. I think we knew going in that Balor Finn was going to be the main event. And I know that people are starting to turn on Finn Balor because the Demon never loses and Finn's character is kind of bland. And I don't disagree. There's a lot of things that he doesn't he's not the greatest babyface in the world. And the problems with the Demon are it's gone from being this scary once in a while thing to, oh, I wonder what face paint he'll be wearing this time. It's become less of a different personality of Finn and more just Finn in face paint, if you get what I say. And maybe that's especially true because against Joe, he ain't got no time for no demons and he just beats the shit out of anybody. Let me say this. Again, any other pay-per-view, this is a match of the night. I don't care how you feel about Balor. It was a great brawl, a great fight. I liked the finish, the classic finish from Survivor Series 96. I'm not sure I agree with Balor retaining, but I'll wait to see what the plans are. Because either one of them needs to go up to the main roster, or both of them need to go up to the main roster, or somebody deserves to move on from this. Because Joe is clearly motivated and in great shape, and Balor has been around, and there's nothing to teach him, and, we'd like to see Bullet Club in WWE as opposed to on NXT. I know I love NXT, but it seems odd that they would keep them down there when there's money to be made selling Bullet Club shirts on Raw. I want to say, and when I was talking about it last night, when it was happening, people got on me I was upset because all the attempts to seal up Joe's eye, because Joe headbutted. Sorry, I have something in my throat. Joe headbutted Finn right off the bat in the match and ended up cutting himself over his eye. And it just wouldn't close. He was bleeding like crazy. And I thought it added a lot because it really made Joe look like that badass. Because, sorry. Oh, June 8th is Full Sail. Okay, I don't know. I heard something about the Tokyo, Japan one. I don't know why. It's June 8th and it's at Full Sail. Okay, so I've given you all horrible information. I'm a bad person. But I saw somebody was posting a logo about an NXT Tokyo, Japan. So maybe that's for later in the year. I don't know. But either way, that could be where they do a rematch with Bayley and Asuka, and that'd be the only reason to keep her around. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, so Joe looks like a badass because he's bleeding, and they're all trying to get him to stop, and he's staying in character. He's like, get the fuck away from me. I've got to finish killing Finn Balor. Um, and it worked a couple times, but then because it didn't stop bleeding, they had to keep making the match pause so that they could try and get Finn's eye or get Joe's eye under control. And I was like, listen, I understand. It's a PG product. I understand that there are health concerns. Although I don't feel like they really played into this case. I don't know for sure, but I understand that. I understand that blading is a barbaric thing, and I don't condone blading. But this was one of those things that happened that actually improved the match. It made it seem more. Uh, it added an emotional level to the match, and it added incredibly to Joe's character that he's getting busted open, but he doesn't care because he's too busy fighting. And I get, it makes me sound like a monster. I'm like, get the ref, get the cut man out of the way, and just let him fight with it bleeding. I'm like, but that seemed to be what Joe wanted to do. And yes, they do have cut man on staff. Those were the guys running out with all those towels. They were desperately trying to get him sealed up, and I get it. I do. I really do. I understand that there's plenty of good reasons to have that cut healed up, especially since it didn't seem like it was stopping. But I felt like either that they didn't cover it as well, or that it just kept in the early part of the match. It kept interfering in the quality of it because it ground the match to a halt. They had to pretend like Finn had to pretend he was hurt long enough that they could try and get some of it sealed, and it just kept happening. I guess is my point. Maybe at some point they should have just said, just let him go, and we'll fix it when we get a chance. We shouldn't be grinding the match to a halt just to fix the cut over his eye. He's not going to die from it, probably. I don't want to. I'm not a doctor. But people, you're a monster because it's a health risk. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm just saying, watching this, it's detracting from the match that they keep just basically stopping in their tracks. And I love the match, and maybe it's just I loved what they were going for, and I wanted to see it continue. And every time they had to come in and seal the cut, they had to stop the match. I'm like, no, I want this to keep going because I think they were trying to do something special, and it's ruining all the momentum. I understand that out of a health concern, out of a physical concern for Joe, they had to do it. But in the moment, I will make no apologies for the fact that I said they should just let it go and let them fight. Joe was exactly like the Joe that you've all heard about, but because nobody watched TNA, none of you have gotten to see. This was the killer Joe. He's in the best shape he's been in a while. He was fighting like a monster. And he had the attitude. He had everything. It's upsetting that he doesn't get to win the NXT title unless there is another plan outside of that, because that is a monster that should be, again, doing big things, either being the NXT champion or being on Raw. And I don't know what the solution is because there's so many. Like I said, they can't debut everyone after WrestleMania, but there's Finn, there's Joe, there's Bayley, there's Enzo and Cass, all of whom, and Nakamura really should be on the main roster, and they can't just debut them all the day after WrestleMania. I mean, they could, but they won't. And they just brought up Sami Zayn 2 weeks before WrestleMania, so there's that too. I guess the only other reason why they wouldn't bring Bayley up is because there will almost certainly be a rematch for the women's title after WrestleMania. Uh, and there's no point in bringing Bayley up if you can't insert her right in right away. That does make sense. Does the NXT title basically have Nakamura's name on it if they do a show in Japan? As long as Nakamura stays in NXT, I can't see why they wouldn't put the title on him. I just don't want him to stay there that long because I want to see him on the big stage. But I could, as long as he stays in NXT, it's going to be only a matter of time before he's fighting for the NXT title. And if the idea of Nakamura Baylor or Nakamura Joe doesn't make you happy, I don't know what to tell you, because that makes me very happy. Just the sheer possibilities of who Nakamura can fight. And I said this last night, I said it on Twitter, and I don't take this back. If you like wrestling, and you watched NXT Takeover, and you should watch NXT Takeover, and if you watched it and you did not like NXT Takeover, because I saw a couple people say they didn't, I'm sorry to tell you, you don't like wrestling. Because I don't see how any person who claims to like professional wrestling could watch that show and say, nah, it's not for me. Because that literally was professional wrestling at NXT Takeover Dallas. That was the essence of what every show should be trying to do. It had great wrestling, it had emotion, it had storylines, everything paying off. It had debuts that were great. It was a virtually flawless show, and the only thing that drags it down is the fact that Baron Corbin isn't as good of a wrestler as the other people on the card who are world-class talents. It might not be the first pay-per-view you show a new wrestling fan, but it is a pay-per-view that everybody should watch. It goes on that list. Like, and I will at some point, because it's my job, if I do that list of the 10 greatest wrestling pay-per-views of all time, right now, without even trying to think about what the other 9 are, this is on the list. I don't know if it ends up at number 1 because WrestleMania X7 still exists, but it's on that list. And I don't know what more I can say. I don't know if I can say anything more superlative. But I watched it last night, and this is something else I said last night, is people always ask me, and as long as I've been a wrestling fan for damn long time now, nearly 3 decades, and people always ask me, I've had friends, I've had people who barely know me, I've had my parents say, how do you like professional wrestling? How can you like professional wrestling? And I watched Takeover last night, and I sat there and I said, how can I like professional wrestling? They watch this. How can I not like professional wrestling? Because that was professional wrestling. That's why I like it. That's why I stick around with WWE when they do crappy builds and shitty things and guys I don't want to see on top. Because every once in a while, things like Takeover Dallas happen. And then when you sit there, you go, that's why I watch. For that. Because it can always happen. You don't know when, you don't know where, but it can always happen. And yes, now WrestleMania has to follow that. And I'm sitting here going, it's not going to be bad. Listen, we went into last year's WrestleMania thinking that it was going to be an absolute shit show because the build had been so anemic that we barely remembered what the card was. So if nothing else, WrestleMania 32 is doing better than that, and WrestleMania 31 ended up being pretty good. Granted, it was because some decisions were made that probably will not be made this year. But it's going in with more momentum than 31 had. There's no way it will be better than NXT Takeover. I'm sorry. There's just no way. But I don't think it's going to be a total disaster either. There will be very good wrestling. There will be very good matches. We're not going to get the champion we want. But on the other hand, if Shane McMahon wins, we get a whole bunch of changes possibly. we get a new women's title that it will be called the women's title, which is something that I think we can all agree is a good thing. Um, we're going to get what will probably be a very good ladder match. We're going to get AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho again, and it was pretty darn good the last time, and you know they're going to try and do better. If we don't get a Reigns heel turn, I'll be I don't know what I'll be. It's the one thing that has to happen, and it's the one thing I'm not sure will happen. But I would like to see Reigns turn heel, but he's not. He's probably not going to because there's that guy in charge who doesn't think he should be a heel. We're going to see Dean Ambrose try to kill himself on Brock Lesnar as long as he kills Brock Lesnar with at the same time. There's a lot of things we're going to see that can be good. We're going to see the best women's match in WrestleMania history. Not that that's a high bar, but it's going to clear it pretty easily. It's a good thing we're going to see a lot of it because it's going to be 6 hours long, and there's also opening day for the baseball season tomorrow. And I tell you, if I didn't have a job that involved writing about wrestling, I'd probably watch the baseball at least for the first part of the pay-per-view. Which is, not a shot at WrestleMania, but it is opening day for the Jays, and it's at 4 o'clock. So I'm sorry, Kalisto versus Ryback, I might have to give you a miss. It seems so long, 6 hours. Plus, they said they might be 5 to 20 minutes long, which they probably won't be because they never are. But if they're saying it, maybe they will. I don't know what kind of prediction I can make, and that's okay. I think Kalisto's going to retain the U.S. title. I think the Bad Girls are somehow going to beat the Total Divas. Although maybe not because it's Bree's last match. I don't know. That's the thing. It's not a match I really care about because why would I? The news that Vince McMahon thought Ava Marie would get a giant pop, that can't be right because nobody's that stupid. I would hope. Usos versus the Dudleys, who really cares? We've got the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. We've got presumably 19 of 20 entrants announced because we have 16 plus 3 members of the Wyatt family who aren't hurt. The 20th spot is not known, and you know what? They could make it more than 20 because it was 30 last year and 30 the year before. Maybe they've scraped up 11 more guys. I'm hoping we get a surprise, and why they moved it on the main card is that there's some plan. On the other hand, maybe Braun Strowman wins or Kane wins, and then we just forget about it forever. I hope the rumors that it's Cesaro are true. They probably aren't, but I hope they are. For the Intercontinental Ladder match, I hope that Kevin Owens retains so that he and Sami Zayn can resume killing each other without 5 other people involved. Or Sami Zayn wins. Those are the only really 2 possibilities. There's Owens or Zayn because the other 5 guys don't matter. They really don't. What's next? What else? We have the New Day versus the League of Nations. I mean, the New Day has won nearly every single match between them so far, so I suspect they may win again. But that's just me because the League of Nations means absolutely nothing. I will admit this, as silly as the shirts are, that they have to have shirts for each of them. If there was a Canadian in that group and they had a Canadian flag shirt with some clever Canadian nickname, I would probably buy one because that'd be funny. But they don't, so I don't care about their shirts. I'm not buying a Bulgarian brute shirt because I'm not from Bulgaria. The titles are not on the line. The tag titles are not on the line in this match. They've made it quite clear. It is a battle for tag team supremacy. There will be no tag title on the line here. Not that it matters if the New Day wins, but no, there's no tag title on the line. It's just a 4-on-3 match, which makes no sense. But whatever, just roll with it. What else? What's next? Come on, we gotta have this list quicker. Ambrose versus Lesnar. Ambrose, if he wins, it will be the greatest thing ever. But if he loses, it's not the worst thing ever, and he's probably going to lose. I think he'll still get over as a result. It just depends on what WWE wants to do, because if you believe the rumors, they don't see him as a top guy, and maybe he's not yet. Maybe he isn't the guy who should beat Brock Lesnar, because yes, as nice as it is that he's gotten all these weapons, you have to remember that Brock can use those weapons too. Yes, basically it should be Ambrose. It probably will be Lesnar, and they will make Ambrose look good in defeat. It'd be nice if they'd make Ambrose look good in a win, but we all know that's not going to happen. So it's one of those cases where we take what we can get. Don't have to like it, kind of just have to live with it. Next, we'll go to. Give me a second. The women's title match, which seems to be earmarked for Sasha to win. I know everybody's. I like Becky Lynch. I like Becky Lynch as much as the next person, but Sasha Banks is the woman who's leading this division into the new era. Charlotte's held the title for 6 months. There are no bad winners in this case. It doesn't really matter to me who wins, but I do think it will be Sasha. Her cousin's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he gave her a shout out. He'll probably be there in some effect for that. It's basically setting up for her to win. There's an outside chance that Charlotte retains, yes. But like I said, there is no bad choice here. Any of those three women should win. We should get a new title on either that day or on Monday, and everybody will be happy. Well, that's not true because we're never happy because we're wrestling fans. But every outcome of that match, to me, is a good outcome. Have I run through all the matches yet? I know there's still one. I don't want to get to the. Well, there's two more, but I don't want to get to those if I'm skipping one, because it would seem stupid to talk about the two main event matches and then have to come back to something that doesn't mean as much. I'm talking because I'm surfing the internet while I do this because I'm slow. Sorry. The front page of WWE.com is that Sting retires in heartfelt speech, and yes, yeah. So that's official. There's no way of getting around that. Sorry. Okay, I just want to make sure I got everything. Oh, AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho. See, I knew I'd forget one. AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho is just being set up for AJ Styles to win. Hopefully he does more with beating Chris Jericho at WrestleMania than they did with Fandango. If you want to see something cool, and this is AJ Styles related, so I'll put it here. Xavier Woods somehow convinced them to let him host Up, Down, Down, and play video games on the big screen at Texas Stadium. You know, the very big screen that hangs over the field, which I would kill to have that chance, so I can understand why they would do that. So it was him and Tyler Breeze and Bayley and AJ Styles, and they had this big. When Styles comes out to reveal that he wants to play, they do a big, big production, big shiny light and angelic music, and then he falls down 3 stairs, and it's just hilarious. He covers for himself well, but if you want to see AJ Styles actually being hilarious, it's on. I assume it's on Up, Down, Down's channel, but it's the video where they play WWE 2K on the gigantic screen. It's just hilarious. And he sells it well, and Xavier Woods is corpsing the entire time. I'm just laughing and thinking about it. But anyway, so Styles is going to win that match. Hopefully it's an excellent match, because as much as, Chris Jericho has clearly lost a step, and we don't want to see him making all these comebacks and returns, you'd have to believe that personal pride will make him try to have a great match at WrestleMania, especially against someone like Styles. So that leaves us with the 2 big matches. We'll do the foregone conclusion first. No matter what, if AJ Styles win, this has to be the last match between those two for a good long time. We'll start with the foregone conclusion. Roman Reigns is winning the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. We can kick and scream and yell and boo Roman Reigns, and we're going to do all of it. But Roman Reigns is winning the WWE World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania, and this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing, because if they're going to do this, they have to do it. We've been saying this for months. If you want to make Roman Reigns the champion, if you want to crown him, then fucking crown him. And then when he fails or succeeds or whatever, you can say, well, we did it and we tried, and then we can just try something else or move on or whatever. And if they never give him this crowning moment at WrestleMania, then they'll just keep kicking it down the can down the road, and at WrestleMania 33, we'll be staring down the barrel of the gun again. Give him the title, go with it, and take your lumps however it goes. That's where we're at. At this point, I don't care. I just want it to happen so it can succeed or fail, and we can all move on. To see what happens next, because we have not hit that point. We haven't gotten to see what happens when Roman Reigns is champion. Yeah, he's already got 2 title reigns. One lasted 5 minutes, and the other one, they completely just happened over the Christmas holiday, so nobody noticed. And they don't really talk about it anymore. But this is the one. If when you get that crowning WrestleMania moment, this is the one where they say, okay, we're giving him the ball, right? So if they do this and it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. If they give it and it works, then it works. But they have to do it. So we don't just sit here for the next 6 months saying, oh, we just decided to delay it to SummerSlam to see if his crowd reactions get any better. No. They're not going to get any better. Do it now. If you're going to do it now. And if you're not going to do it, stop putting them in title matches. Admit that you failed. But if they're not going to do that, then they have to put the title on him and then see if it succeeds or fails. Because they haven't given it that real shot, and if they do. If he stays face, who does he feud with on Monday? I don't got no goddamn clue. No clue. That's kind of the reason why he should turn heel, because there are so many options for when he turns heel that he could feud with. But I don't know. If he stays face, I don't know. Is John Cena ready to come back? Because I've heard 2 different reports. One that says he's not here till July, and one that says he could have started 2 weeks ago if he wanted to. That one I don't entirely believe, because if John Cena could have started 2 weeks ago, he'd be on the WrestleMania card. They would have had Shane McMahon come out on Raw and say, you know what, I'm not a wrestler, but this guy is, and had John Cena come out and he'll wrestle The Undertaker at WrestleMania. If John Cena could wrestle at WrestleMania, he would be wrestling at WrestleMania. That was a lot of the use of the word wrestle in a very short period of time. So that's where we are with that match. And with the final match we have is Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, and I have no idea who's going to win this match, because by threatening that The Undertaker's last WrestleMania, which has made people say, well, they're not really retiring, to just be now WrestleMania. I'm like, how does that make any fucking sense? But anyway, logically, I know, bear with me though. Logically, you don't bring Shane McMahon back and attach a company changing stipulation and have Shane McMahon come out and say, boy, wrestling has sure sucked for the last however long. And these are all things that you guys hate. We'd like to change them. And then all I have to do is win this match at WrestleMania, and then to have him lose and go away again. What that tells to the fans is, we just admitted our product sucked repeatedly. But guess what? We're not going to change it. So, logically, and I know I'm saying logically Shane McMahon has to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and that makes no goddamn sense. But logically, Shane McMahon has to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania somehow. It won't be clean and it won't be pretty, but somehow Shane McMahon has to win this match. It doesn't make any sense for The Undertaker to win. It doesn't make any sense for Vince McMahon to emerge victorious from this. It doesn't make any sense that that it has sent Shane McMahon out there to shit on their product and then not get him to win and make those changes. I realize I'm talking about a company that has let us down a lot. But I can't believe that they would do this thing and they would make this plan if the plan wasn't that on Monday night Shane McMahon is, quote unquote, in control of Raw. It's the only thing that makes sense. And that's how you do things. That's how you get like half a dozen guys to debut from NXT. That's how you change the Divas Champion into the Women's Champion, because Shane McMahon now controls things and he would like to see these changes. And listen, this would be a whole different thing if the streak still existed. But the streak doesn't still exist, so it does not matter if The Undertaker loses. It really doesn't. And you know what? Yeah, it'd be the Undertaker's retirement match, and he would lose against Shane McMahon. And one thing, they can always bring him back because stipulations don't mean shit. And two, you know what? If the whole idea is that Shane McMahon is starting a new era on Raw, maybe that's a good way to do it. Is over the Undertaker going away and Triple H also going away because he will no longer be the champion, and Shane McMahon will presumably not allow the Authority to stick around. If you're going to say we're going to make changes, perhaps getting rid of the last vestiges of the old guard is one of those good symbolic gestures. And yeah, basically, if Undertaker wins, none of this matters. We've been saying ever since the Authority found a way back the last time they were taken out of power, we've been saying there is no way to get the Authority out of power because there is nobody powerful enough left to believably kick them out. And this is the last and only opportunity to do so. Because if Shane McMahon and this stipulation where he will get control and can believably have it because he's still a McMahon, damn it, this is the only time that the Authority can believably be defeated for any extended period of time. And if Shane McMahon can't do it, there is absolutely nobody who can, and we are stuck in this dark and dismal future where all we have is NXT for company. And I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that WWE actually wants to make change here. That they're going to have Shane McMahon come out and proclaim an era where there isn't bad guys running Raw for the first time in forever. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, because even though it is the smartest thing, that does not mean that that's what's going to happen. But it's what I would really, really like to have happen. Like, there are plenty of ways to bring The Undertaker back, and if you don't want it to be a retirement match, and maybe they don't. But it is in Texas, and maybe he would like to go out his last match in his home state. I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what anyone's thinking. All I'm saying is that this storyline doesn't make any sense if Shane McMahon loses. It makes no sense. And what's going to happen on Monday? It just, that's where I'm at with it. It's the only way that makes sense. It will be the only way that they come out of WrestleMania with me going, damn, I can't wait to see what happens on Raw. And however it happens, whether there's like Baylor and Bullet Club or whatever they're calling it, whether it's somebody else interfering, whether it's whatever, whether it's Undertaker just deciding, you know what, fuck it, I'm laying down for Shane so we can have real change, whatever the case, it's got to happen. But we'll see. In less than 15 hours it starts. 15 hours? What time does it start? It starts at 7, so 5. Why can't I do math all of them? Less than 16 hours. Sorry. No, 14 hours. No, that's not right either. Wow, my math skills are diverted me. It must be 1 in the morning. Oh my god, it is. All right. So it's WrestleMania weekend. If you're not hyped for this, I don't know why you watch wrestling. Even the bad WrestleManias aren't ridiculously horrible, and this one isn't going to be ridiculously horrible either. We've shown that they know what they're doing with Takeover. We've shown that they can do the right thing at WrestleMania. I'm just want to see what happens. You know what? My boss got to go to WrestleMania. I hope he's having a good time. I hope he brings me back a shirt. Anyway, he doesn't listen to this. He doesn't know what I'm saying. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I am at a euphoric high from Takeover, and it's going to carry over into WrestleMania, and we'll see how long it lasts. So I hope we all enjoy WrestleMania. I really do. As you may have guessed, from the game's perspective, I've been playing a lot of Stardew Valley. which I hardly recommend. I've played so much Stardew Valley, I wrote a slideshow for Goliath that explained why I hadn't actually had time to write a review for Stardew Valley. Um, and yeah, I really don't know what I lost my train of thought. I don't know what else to say. Um, I hope everybody enjoys WrestleMania. I hope the network holds up for everybody. I hope we get lots of good matches, and everybody leaves WrestleMania at least moderately okay with what happened. Um, Once again, if you have not watched Takeover, and if you at least have not watched Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura, you should. You absolutely must. Um, we got less than a day, and everything shakes out, and we start all over again. Um, so we will be back next week at midnight or thereabouts on Saturday. Um, this podcast is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker.com, 411mania.com, and on the TWNE After Dark Facebook group. And also, sorry, I forgot to mention that from the top, is the W2M network of podcasts. They're also found on Facebook. It's run by some 411 writers, notably Sean Garmer, who is in Texas for WrestleMania, and I'm sure he's having a good time. I hope he is anyway. Um, so yeah, don't forget about them. They're mostly good people. And of course, if you like what I do here, you want to read more about what I do, I work for website Goliath.com. I don't remember what my official title is, but I just call myself the senior wrestling editor. It's a men's entertainment website. It has movies, games, TV, and of course professional wrestling, which is my area of expertise, you might say. Um, so I've put some what I believe are some good stuff up there, and we slag on Batman versus Superman a lot because it deserves it. With that said, everybody enjoy WrestleMania. If you haven't watched Takeover, make sure you do. We'll see you next week. Thanks everyone for listening live. Thanks for everyone listening at all. Thanks to people in the chat for talking, giving me some information that I needed. And have a good one. Always be a fan.